Prime Minister Narendra Modi's big pitch to US business to invest in India. There will be no better time to invest in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi told the US business at USIBC 2020. The Prime Minister laid out the roadmap for investment, spoke of space, insurance, infrastructure, defense being areas where the two most powerful democracies, the largest and the oldest democracies, can come together, and not just for each other, but for the benefit of the world in post-COVID area. That's our top focal story. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Also on the show, the big US response to Chinese espionage. The United States today ordered the closure of Chinese consulate in Houston. Chinese diplomats and officials have been given 72 hours to pack up from Houston, Texas. And the images that you see on your television screen, the Chinese officials and diplomats, they were quickly burning files and papers and documents. US fire department officials, police officials, they were all outside the consulate. They weren't permitted to enter. China has threatened retaliation. We'll get you that story. But first, our top focus story on the broadcast is Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeking US investment and the United States to set shop in India in a bigger way, in insurance sector, in defense, in space, in infrastructure. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was speaking at USIBC. It was a virtual conference where the Prime Minister said there won't be a better time to invest in India. He spoke of how Government of India was making it easier to do business in India. Then he said it's not just for US business where they can get maximum and the quickest return on their investment in India, but also how US and India together can benefit the rest of the world. Let's listen in to Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
This vision, there are few better partners than the United States of America. India and the USA are two vibrant democracies with shared values. We are natural partners. Thus, US-India friendship has scaled many heights in the past. Now, it is time our partnership plays an important role in helping the world bounce back faster after the pandemic. To grow more streams of revenue, the best time to tap investment opportunities in Indian agriculture sector is now. India invites you to invest in healthcare. The healthcare sector in India is growing faster than 22% every year. Our companies are also progressing in production of medical technology, telemedicine, and diagnostics. India invites you to invest in defense and space. We are raising the FDI cap for investment in defense sector to 74%. India has established 2 defense corridors to encourage production of defense equipment and platforms. India is contributing towards a prosperous and resilient world through the clarion call of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. And for that, we await your partnership. Friends, today, there is global optimism towards India. This is because India offers a perfect combination of openness, opportunities, and options.
So perfect combination of opportunity and optimism is what Prime Minister Narendra Modi says. But what's the roadmap? Let me quickly carry across to India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan joining us live for more on the story. Geeta, does India have a specific roadmap and a strategy to draw more US investment and in specific areas?
Well, it does. As it does have a very specific roadmap when it comes to how to attract investment. We do know that COVID-19 did create a lot of obstacles, not just for India, but countries across the world. But despite that, like Prime Minister Modi said, there has been an increase in FDI, and India has seen investments come in. There are a few areas that India is going to focus on, which Piyush Goyal also mentioned yesterday in the very same summit. One is ease of doing business, trying to create that atmosphere of one window for all kinds of work that is required for a country or a company to get clearances. We know that it's an ambitious project because it has still not come it is still not completely fructified, even though Prime Minister Modi had mentioned it in his first term. Secondly, in terms of infrastructure and projects, there are a lot of aspects that India is looking at. Now, creating alternatives to the global supply chain is one thing, but creating an atmosphere of openness is another. And that's the pitch Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making when he says that there is going to be more open market system for the United States of America and American businesses to come in, but it will have to be in the realm of what India calls Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is focusing on domestic production and domestic manufacturing.
Geeta Mohan, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. That's a very interesting aspect, whether alternate supply chains can now be created in India and how quickly can that actually be implemented on ground, from words to action on ground, and we'll be tracking that story. But when it comes to from words to action on ground, the big story, the countdown has begun for the arrival of the much awaited Rafale fighter jets. So exactly 7 days from now, the first 5 Rafales that the Indian Air Force and the country has been so desperately waiting for over a decade will finally arrive at Ambala. The Rafales will have a bigger role to play. It truly promises to be a game changer with its Scalp and Meteor missiles. Shiv Arur with this report.
In just days from now, the first Indian Rafale fighter jets will arrive in this country. On the 29th of July, 5 fully combat-ready Rafale jets will land at the Indian Air Force Base in Ambala, Haryana, the new home of the Rafales. The last time you saw the Indian Rafales was in October last year, when they were handed over to Indian pilots in the presence of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. 9 months later, the jets are finally headed home. 5 jets will be arriving at Ambala, with the possibility of 2 more a short while later. While the first squadron is at Ambala, the second will come up at Hasimara in West Bengal. The 2 game-changer weapons, the Meteor and Scalp, have already begun arriving for storage at Ambala. A total of 36 Rafales will be delivered by 2023, with the aircraft competing for an order for 114 more. The 5 Rafales will take off from southern France, along with a French Air Force mid-air refueler. They will fly direct to the United Arab Emirates Al Dhafra base for a short stop. And then they'll cross the Arabian Sea for the final flight home to Ambala over the Arabian Sea. An Indian Air Force mid-air tanker will join them to keep fuel ready if necessary. In an unusual statement, the Indian Air Force has officially said its pilots are fully combat ready on the Rafale and its weapon systems, a significant claim amidst conflict in eastern Ladakh. The Rafale's advanced weapons are already at Ambala, waiting for the jets to arrive. The Scalp, for instance, is a cruise missile with ranges in excess of 500 kilometers. It's stealthy and devastatingly accurate. The Meteor Beyond Visual Range missile is the most capable such weapon system in the world, with a range of well over 100 kilometers, completely outranging both Chinese and Pakistani air-to-air missiles, and could prove a major deterrent to any air aggression. The final countdown to India's Rafales has begun. With the country on military alert, the new aircraft couldn't be more welcome. Bureau Report, India Today.
And it's not just the Rafale fighter jets. So first 5 come in now, another 4 join in soon. There'll be 1 squadron that will be based in Ambala. There'll be a 2nd squadron that will be based in the northeast. So in all, we are getting 36 aircraft. The Scalp missiles, the Meteor missiles, missiles that can hit the enemy 500 kilometers away when it comes to Scalp, and about 100 kilometers away beyond visual range. Meteors, truly game changers, and they will change the dynamics of air operations, not just vis-a-vis China, but also Pakistan.
With India's first Rafales inbound, India's public has one question above all. Will the Rafales play a role in Ladakh? Like all things military, it's a complex answer. So stay with us as we take you through it step by step. Question 1. Will the Rafales be deployed in Ladakh? First things first, the Rafales will be based at Haryana's Ambala, which as you can see is 430 kilometers from Ladakh, which may seem like a lot, but it's a very short distance in supersonic fast fighter jet terms and can be covered very quickly. More importantly, the Rafale's range and its combat radius is a staggering 1700 kilometers, which means the aircraft and its weapons are a direct threat to all zones covered by that circle, which very much includes eastern Ladakh, Chinese-controlled Aksai Chin, Tibet, Pakistan and POK. Question number 2. Can Rafales operate from Ladakh? The answer to that question is a big yes. In fact, one of the India-specific enhancements on the Rafale is a modification of the fighter's twin-jet engines, allowing them to operate at extreme cold temperatures of the high-altitude air bases like Leh. Question number 3. Don't Indian Air Force pilots need time to train? The Indian Air Force has clearly stated that its pilots are fully operational on the Rafale and its advanced weapon systems. And while the jets can always be deployed where and when necessary, specific mission familiarization has actually already begun. Since June, Indian pilot trainees in France have specifically been flying simulated combat profiles mirroring missions over Ladakh, with true depictions of terrain and deployments. The Rafale combat simulators and training equipment allow pilots to load scenarios of choice and fly missions in a highly realistic artificial intelligence setting. While this can only be the next best thing to actual flights, it's an indication of a move to get combat ready quickly. Question 4. How will China react to the Indian Rafales? Well, after the Rafales arrive, while pilots will spend time stretching their wings and discovering their combat qualities, the jets will already have a psychological effect across the border. Every time the adversary spots an aircraft on the Indian side, they will assume it's the Rafale with all its advanced long-range weaponry, and that itself can have an effect on any potential battle. The belief that India will always put its best foot forward in a combat scenario could have a deterrent effect. Question 5. Is the Rafale better than Chinese jets? While the Chinese Air Force has capable aircraft and in large numbers, the Rafale currently outclasses them in all parameters, including combat radius, range, weaponry, and very importantly, in terms of electronic warfare. China's most advanced jet, the 5th generation J-20 stealth fighter, should theoretically be a superior aircraft. But without combat experience like the Rafale, and China likely unwilling to expose its jet to Indian sensors, the advantage stands eroded for now. But the Chinese jet is still a reminder that India still doesn't have a true stealth fighter aircraft yet. And finally, can 5 Rafales make a difference? Well, the 5 Rafales arriving are just the first batch. with more aircraft to arrive in installments for a total of 36 jets by 2023. And while there can be no replacement for sheer numbers, it's also important to note that the Rafale is an enormously capable weapons platform, and even a handful of these jets, flying with other Indian Air Force jets in combat packages, could pack a serious deterrent and offensive punch. Bureau Report, India Today.
And what happened at Galwan on the night of 15 June actually is a glimpse of India's intent and resolve. But China continues to remain in some of these areas. Remember, China, there's a big difference in what China says and what they actually do on ground. So while they may say, yes, they're committed to disengagement and moving back, their movement back is very slow or not at all. Abhishek Bhalla with this report.
Over 2 months of a war-like standoff. Over 5 weeks since the Galwan clash with big casualty numbers on both sides. And then came a phase of disengagement, with troops on both sides pulling back to avoid another confrontation. But a fortnight into the pullback in eastern Ladakh, things have hit a roadblock. After a progressive disengagement that began early in July, things have now slowed to a stop. In other words, after pulling back a certain distance, the disengagement process has come to a standstill, with Chinese troops holding on to their new positions. The Pangong So and Hot Spring Gogra areas remain volatile. Sources say there are still no signs of the Chinese army dismantling structures they had set up between Finger 8 and Finger 4 of Pangong So. In the Hot Springs sector at Patrol Point 17A, around 40 to 50 soldiers are separated by just 600 to 800 meters. In the Galwan Valley's Patrol Point 14, where the bloody clash took place on June the 15th, the Chinese have moved back 1.5 kilometers from the line of actual control, and the distance between troops on each side is 3 kilometers.
India's stance is categorical. That status quo ante has to be maintained, and China has to get back to the positions it was in as of April of 2020. And India has said no blinking, no brinkmanship, and carried out now deployment, build-up, which has been there, which is matching, or rather more than matching, the build-up by the PLA.
Remember, a big hint of the current roadblocks came from none other than the defense minister, who said that we must remain alert, indicating clearly that China cannot be trusted.
जो कुछ अब तक की प्रगति हुई है बातचीत की, मामला हल होना चाहिए। लेकिन कहां तक हल होगा, अभी इस संबंध में मैं पूरे कोई गारंटी नहीं दे सकता हूं। लेकिन मैं इतना यकीन दिलाना चाहता हूं कि भारत की 1 इंच जमीन को भी दुनिया की कोई ताकत छू नहीं सकती है, उस पर कब्जा नहीं कर सकती।
Post the Galwan clash, India has changed the rules of engagement, making it aptly clear that the expansionist agenda of its Himalayan neighbor will not succeed. While China's stubbornness in keeping its word was very much expected, India's muscle flex in the Indian Ocean can be seen as an element in the larger game, and with the United States digging in its claws progressively,
you can't go make claims for maritime regions that you have no lawful claim to. You can't threaten countries and bully them in the Himalayas.
China has decided to dig in its heels. Is the answer more talks to dislodge a stubborn China, or something else?
With the Chinese not pulling back completely as was discussed in various meetings, the disengagement process has hit a roadblock. Many now feel calling it a long haul would be an understatement, and the Indian Army has already begun preparations for the winter deployment, which could be extremely harsh. And amid all this, the Defence Minister's statement that the Indian Armed Forces need to be prepared to respond at a short notice is of much significance. With camera person Satya, Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
But democracies across the world seem to be coming together to counter an increasingly belligerent and expansionist China. Take the United States, for example. The US today ordered the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston, Texas. We'll show you images how China was desperately burning documents because they now have just 72 hours to lock up and leave. Why? Because the US has accused China of hacking, spying, espionage and interfering in America's internal affairs.
Police in Houston rushed to the Chinese consulate in Texas as a thick plume of smoke rose to the sky. In the backyard of the Chinese consulate, it appears documents were being hurriedly burnt. The Donald Trump administration has given the Chinese diplomats 72 hours to vacate the premises and shut down the consulate at Houston, accusing China of spying, hacking, theft of intellectual property, intimidation, and interfering in US internal affairs. The Trump administration has accused China of state-sponsored hacking and attempting to steal information from laboratories making COVID-19 vaccine. The US has also accused China of using students, tourists, and embassy officials of attempting to steal both commercial and military secrets. In fact, the US Justice Department secured an indictment against 2 Chinese hackers accused of attempting to steal information about the virus vaccine research. China not only denied the charges, but threatened retaliation amidst reports of moving to shut down the US consulate at Wuhan.
On July 21st, the US side unexpectedly requested China to close its general consulate in Houston. This is a unilateral political provocation on China. China strongly condemns it and urges the US side to withdraw the wrong decision. Otherwise, China will definitely take a necessary and legitimate response.
China blamed the US for making it a scapegoat after failing to check the spread of the virus and for Trump's election campaign. China accused the US of harassing Chinese diplomats, consulate staff, and even Chinese students in the United States. China has 5 consulates in the US. Apart from the one at Houston, China has a consulate in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, apart from its embassy in Washington, D.C. The United States has accused China of state-sponsored hacking, of attempting to steal information from labs engaged in the task of corona vaccine development, of intimidating American citizens, and interfering in America's internal affairs. In fact, US says the 2 Chinese nationals who've been arrested for spying had support of the Chinese government. China-US tensions are only set to escalate with tit-for-tat action from Beijing. With cameraman Kripal Singh in Delhi, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
I want to leave you with a good news story, and this is the picture of Colonel Santosh Babu's wife, Santoshi Babu. She's just been appointed as the Deputy Collector, and that's the image of K. Chandrasekhar Rao handing her over the letter of her appointment as Deputy Collector, and he said that she should be appointed very close to her house as quickly as possible. We salute her, we salute our braves. That is all I have time for on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.